Welcome, Brad Herda, to the Skillabration Podcast. Let me introduce Brad. Brad has been supporting and improving the lives of those around him for over 4 decades. He has brought perspective and context into every role he has had. Having been in manufacturing organizations for most of his adult career, he was able to forge relationships by learning what matters to people. In doing so, Brad was able to master the art of change management and understand the importance of a multi-generational workforce. He finds ways to communicate how the big picture benefits themselves, their teams, their families, and their organizations. Since starting his business in 2016, Brad has been able to support his clients to achieve continuous record-breaking results. So Brad and I know each other from a networking group called the Idea Collective, and I used to join his accountability group every Tuesday.
It was in the morning. You didn't like mornings, Nikki. Let's just be honest.
Yes.
Which is why it's
Well,
strange that we're recording this early today.
did you see how I agreed with yes, I didn't like you? Just teasing. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. But we love our banter. So,
Absolutely.
when I started this Skillabration podcast, I thought of you right away because a lot of homeschool families are interested in their kids might be interested in the trades. And with your experience, especially not only with manufacturing, but also with multi-generational workforces, I thought you'd be a great guest. So tell us a little bit more about what you do, who you are, and what you do.
One of the things I really enjoy doing is that multi-generational workforce piece, helping and supporting old guys like myself that own their businesses, that hired guys that were of their same generation or slightly younger, and they grew up in the industry and they did all the things, and their quote unquote common sense is similar. And then they complain about, well, we can't find good people. And the fact of the matter is there's good people everywhere. You just have to look through a different lens at times. The world has changed, and COVID created an opportunity for massive change in the workforce. And the white collar jobs have kind of adapted to that, but the blue collar world has not really adapted. And understanding that Gen Zs, which are 27 years old and younger right now, behave and work differently and value things differently than what I did growing up, and maybe what my parents did, or even my aunts and uncles may have decided was important. It's just a different world, and you got to be open to that change and open to those opportunities to create an organization that's receptive and understanding and not harsh and abrasive. Because for many young adults, their lives have been scheduled. Maybe in the homeschool world, it's slightly different because it's not quite as regimented. There's a little more freedom. So there's probably a little bit more opportunity to think of, oh, what do I have to do next? Because it's a different level of planning, a different level of opportunity than maybe a traditional school system. And being aware of that as a business owner, as a hiring manager, is super, super important to be able to say, hey, this is different and this is what's going on. And so working with those businesses to make that recognition so that they can thrive moving forward and have a business to transition to their family members or even sell is what's really important and what I enjoy doing.
What are some of the strategies that you use with the people that you work with to implement those skills that you're discussing? What are some of the discussions that you have with them?
Setting expectations. So I have a remodeling client that he likes hiring young individuals to teach and train because he wants to build a bigger pool, right? His whole mission is he likes teaching, they like educating, they like supporting young adults to be better humans and provide them with an opportunity. He also knows that they may not be able to stay with him long term, and that's okay. So being able to support what that looks like. So one of the things that is really ridiculous to individuals is for his general labor level one of the things that's required to be general labor level 1 is show up on time 3 days a week and no more than 15 minutes late 2 days a week. And when people ask me, why'd you do that? I'm like, well, because it's important. And instead of being very frustrated with somebody not showing up on time every day and you getting angry and frustrated, let's just set the expectation. So that comes in at a certain wage level. Then to go to the next level, you have to show up every day, 5 days a week. And what we do is we transfer the onus back to the employee, the young individual, to make the decision for themselves. Is it worth me getting out of bed 5 days a week to show up to make the extra dollar, dollar and a half, $2, whatever the number is, consistently and regularly? That's their decision, not the employer's decision. We remove that frustration. And most people's minds go, why would you do that? That's ridiculous. But it's important because it is, right? If somebody's playing Minecraft till 3 a.m. and they don't want to end the game, or they won't, whatever they're doing, and they got to be to work at 7 o'clock, yeah, they're probably going to try to sleep in a little bit longer, and it might be 15 minutes late because they hit the snooze button or whatever that might look like. The world is different. It's a behavior is different. Change is different, and the value of time is different. So that's just one of the things we work on, is setting those expectations of what to do, when to do it, and set a clear path, because many young individuals, they need to know the direction to go. How do I get from A to Z? Because we haven't provided that communication very well. So that's the biggest thing we work on, is step 1, step 2, step 3, show them a career path, show them the opportunity, what skills they need to learn, what problems they need to solve. And typically it creates better relationships for the employer and the employee at the same time.
Okay. So when those expectations get rolled out, what does that even look like? Are they just saying, okay, this is a new thing, and then that's that? Or is it?
No, it's there, and it's used as part of the evaluation, continuous
Okay.
evaluation. Also rolling out what I get my clients to think about when they hire somebody new, what's that 30, 60, 90-day plan look like, so that there's communication along the way at the 30-day window, 60-day window. If things aren't working in 60 days, well then, if it's on the employer not doing their job, then maybe it creates a lot of self-check and balance between both sides of it, both the employee and the employer. And it creates ownership and expectations on both sides of the equation, not just a one-way street of, hey, we're going to use this young individual, abuse their body, and we'll pay them at the end. That's not the world we work in anymore. Those journeymen that are out there that have been in industry for 40 years, for all their wisdom, not necessarily their production, it's important, but the production value is just as important as the wisdom, and that's where the disconnect often comes in, because we can go to Glassdoor, we can go all these places, find out what people are making, whereas before, nobody knew. Nobody knew George was making $6 an hour more than Henry because they didn't talk about it. Now today we talk about everything, right? Everything gets shared. Doesn't matter. It all gets shared. And it's like, really? Why would? Okay.
So when you talk about people showing up late, is that like a Gen Z issue that you've been running into, or
It's a millennial Gen Z thing that's typical,
millennial
right?
too?
It's a yeah. Oh, 8 o'clock. We're supposed to start work at 8 o'clock. Well, I show up with my Starbucks at 8:03, take my jacket off, get my stuff together. It's 8:15, and now we're ready to work, and coming late to that 8:15 meeting because you didn't do all the stuff ahead of time. It's like,
Yes.
it's not that hard.
Yes.
It's not that hard, people.
Yes.
But it's setting the expectation, and too often leaders don't set the they have it in their mind, but it's never communicated, formalized, or written down. And what I really strive for is to let that happen. And for your students that are part of this or listening, don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask the expectation in an interview. Don't be afraid to ask the question, what are you expecting from me to show up on time every day? What does on time mean to you? And if it means 10 minutes early to that person and it's important, then at least you know that, hey, this person wants me to be here 10 minutes early so I can be ready to do the job at a specific time. Cool, great. Don't be afraid to ask, what does my career path look like in the next 3 to 5 years? What do I need to learn to go from this wage to that wage, and how long does that take? The ability to ask those questions out of young people, they're asking those questions much more frequently in the interview process, and employers aren't prepared for it. And when you tell a young person, when they ask you, what's my career path look like? And the employer goes, well, it can be whatever you want it to be. That's the wrong answer for many traditional schooled individuals, because they've never had to think about what that looks like. They want to be told what that path could look like. And then,
So what have you noticed in your career that someone considering the trades might want or need to know?
They need to know math.
Okay.
They really need to know math. Math, and I'm not necessarily saying work the numbers, but math from a spatial perspective as well. The new commercials that are coming out that says, "Hey, that won't fit," right? With hey, that's not going to fit, and whatever commercial that is insurance commercial or whatever. Just being able to have that spatial constraint to know that, hey, this is great, and I can go get my tape measure. You don't necessarily have to have all the calculus skills and things like that, but that spatial awareness and that, hey, that just doesn't look right awareness is kind of really important. Also, auditory, being really good at noticing sounds. We all know what when we flush our toilet, or we turn on our faucet, or we brush our teeth. We all know what that sounds like, and when something's different, we know that it's different.
So
Right?
are people not noticing that? Are these issues like
Yeah.
when with math and auditory skills, are those issues that are lacking in current
Yeah, because they're not paying
generations?
attention to those things, right?
Okay.
You hear the crack, and we're not paying attention to it because we're stuck in our phones, or typically looking at other things
Okay.
and not paying attention to what's around us,
Yeah.
because we're so focused on the one thing versus letting our other senses take over, and being part of the whole experience is really important, particularly on a job site and in the manufacturing world. And because you can't necessarily trust the other person to do the right thing sometimes, so you have to take on that ownership of being aware of your surroundings and what's going on around you.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So what trades do you think are going to be needed in the next 10 to 20 years? Is there a demand for
All of them.
specific? Okay.
All of them. We always hear about the electrician and the plumber
Uh-huh.
and those type
Uh-huh.
of things, but it's the drywallers, it's the painters, it's the handyman, it's the HVAC contractors, it's the appliance repair, it's the concrete mason work, it's high tension wires at We Energies, at the power companies. It's all of them. The other things that are needed that aren't being taught very well are the learning how to and do estimates and bids, and being able to take that in and saying, okay, how do I make this work, and understand job costing and those activities from a support role perspective. That doesn't get taught in school. That doesn't get taught anywhere. It doesn't get taught to be able to take a drawing and put all the pieces together. You might not have the skill or desire to work and get your hands dirty, but there are other ways to still use that type of mechanical or aptitude to support a manufacturing environment or a construction site, by knowing how to make it happen so that others can be successful without you having to do it. But you need to have an understanding of how it works first, so you can be a good estimator and or project leader. Those are super super high demand right now as well, and very very hard to fill. So if you like the project managing and estimating roles.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. If so, for high school kids right now, what would you recommend that they do to start preparing for these roles? What can they get into?
I would get into FIRST robotics in a heartbeat. I would leverage 4 years of FIRST to the nth degree, because if your program, you go through a new product introduction every year. Even at the middle school level, the FTCs, or even the Lego stuff in elementary school is super important to learn those skills and create that opportunity and work with other people and understand the goal of the game and how do we solve the problem and create opportunity. Being involved in those first programs is massively important to develop some of those skills. The battle bots in your program, in your high schools and areas, those types of outdoor things. There are some communities that are putting together after school trade schools and things like that to be part of for high school students, where it's maybe not quite as much hands-on with some of the bigger equipment, but more of that. It can get you at least down that path to know what you might like. There is welding is going to be a big deal as well. We need welders tremendously to support our military and building of our military infrastructure. The government right now is putting together a bunch of programs to, I think it's called buildsubs.com or buildsubmarines.com or something like that, to start applying to be involved in submarine programs. Dave Herda out of Edgerton Gear here started that program. The Craftsman of Character, it's called. It was a fantastic program. We had him on our show, I don't know, about 20 episodes ago, and fantastic program. So there's lots of different programs to go into. From the homeschool side, it's probably very difficult to get to them because they're not affiliated with a potential school district or whatever that might look like. So, go down to your local garage and say, hey, do you need somebody to work here to at least look at the mechanical side of things and take it as a step to an ends to a means to learn and understand. And there are a lot of senior individuals, guys like myself and older, that want to teach people and want to share their knowledge. We enjoy sharing our wisdom and experiences and things like that. But you got to be willing. You got to be willing to take the step to build the relationship and want to learn it. Nobody's going to come out and say, "Hey, I want to teach you," and you got to come out of your shell a little bit and say, "Yes, I want to go out and learn." And you'd be amazed what you can learn from individuals when you take the initiative.
100%. And 9 times out of 10, people want to help. People want to teach. So, like you said, all you have to do is ask. And regarding homeschool access to these types of programs, I'm pretty sure there is a way for them to go into school for some classes. I'm not sure how it is. Every state might be a little different, but I know I've heard of some homeschool families, they'll have their kids go into school for certain classes. So it might be possible for them to get access to these programs too.
Yeah, and there a lot of technical schools, a lot of districts, they'll have dual enrollment as well.
Yes.
So I don't know how well
they do that.
How you can get to the local technical college for dual enrollment and things like that with all of the, each state's different and every state has their own political nuances of things, of control, etc. And it's like, okay, great. We're trying to educate here. This shouldn't be a pool, but we've turned it that way. So
what about kids becoming the owner of a trade business? Like, is that something that you would encourage kids to do?
Yes. So funny story. I have a friend of mine that we met in college many years ago. We played hockey together for a bunch of years. He's an architect guy. His son is now 21 years old. He went off to Michigan Tech to start out in engineering. He took 2 interns his freshman year and sophomore year. Didn't like sitting in offices, didn't like doing those things. Dropped out of school and is now starting a business for shoreline restorations around lake properties and things like that. He worked for a dude in landscaping business. Didn't necessarily, the owner of that business didn't want that line of work. So he's taking over that line of work. He reached out to me and said, hey, how do I do this the right way? We had a long conversation for like 2.5 hours, made some introductions to the right insurance people and lawyers and things like that so he can set it up correctly. He had some working capital to go into to know, hey, I've got 10 grand that I need to invest to make this work so I can set up my business correctly, get my papers in order, get my contracts documented and things like that so we can go out and be successful along the way. Absolutely 100% go out and take the opportunity. The key is being able to be confident in yourself to go out and sell and know what you're talking about. Because if you're just going to go out and say, I'm going to start my trades business and you don't know what you're doing, it will not go well for you. Lots of risks involved, lots of opportunities, and it can be a very long and lingering road to get out from some of those things.
Yeah. It sounds like a nightmare in my mind.
Right. There's this thing called theft by contractor. It's not fun. It's not good. And it's in every state, everywhere. And if you are a young individual that goes out and does those things and then doesn't do what they said they were going to do, you don't really have the assets to go forward. It's going to be a long journey to get out from underneath what you may have created.
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't sound very fun.
But take the time to learn. And that's so if you can do those things in high school. There was one gentleman in my first program. Kid was super, super smart, worked in a tool and die shop during high school, took all the advantages to learn. By the time he got out of high school, he had likely the equivalent of 5 years of industry experience.
Wow.
Because he spent that time to go forward, even though he wasn't in, right. He can get out of high school and say, I've got 5 years of experience. By the time he got out of college, he had like 9 or 10, right? Just all the different things he learned and all that wisdom that's out there. You can piece that all together to create industry experience, even though you may not have had the job in the industry.
Right. Well, and right now, a lot of boomers are retiring. So I imagine a lot of businesses are up for sale or could potentially be up for sale.
Yes.
So that's another thing to consider.
Yes, and many of them did not do the things to invest properly in their businesses to maximize their output at the end, which is one of the things I support them on, which is why if they would have hired the young people along the way, done all those things, they'd have a better business to sell versus just, I got this building, I got some equipment, I haven't done anything with it for 25 years. My website, is an old, it's there, it doesn't do anything. It's text-based website or whatever, and cool, you might be able to pick up some stuff for a steal and start out. And those are things that I enjoy also helping individuals on, is supporting that startup phase as well. So if you have any audience members, please have them reach out to have at least a conversation so we can make the right introductions.
Absolutely. And your website and information will be in our show notes. So for parents who might be concerned about their children not getting a college degree, what do you say to them, or just maybe just society in general, because there's somewhat of a stigma on getting into the trades, right?
There is. It's getting less and less, which is good. And I think part of that is we have a generation of individuals that we were forced to go to college. Then, well, a 4-year degree is not good enough. We have to go get our master's degrees now and do all. So we've accumulated all of this debt along the way and haven't paid off that debt. And those student loans have lingered for 20, 25 years, whatever it's been, costing a small fortune for opportunity. And we, as parents, we always want our children to be better than what we had. And that debt structure is such that the way not to have that debt structure is go to work right away. Let a company pay for your school, your higher education, if so desired. And that 4-year degree is not as important as potential micro learnings of very specific skills, right? That certificate activity that, like the trade schools, one of the technical colleges here, they've changed their entire curriculum base to get into, instead of saying I have to come on a 2-year track to go through this trade school, we're going to allow you to take 2 or 3 courses specifically to give you a certificate for X, Y, and Z. Instead of saying, okay, you have to come in, you got to take your English, you got to take your GED, all your math, your social sciences, etc. But I only want this welding stuff. Can I just get this welding thing? Now, I'm not disregarding all those other activities. Being a good human and having a well-rounded education is really important so you can understand culture and people and differences and things like that. And those soft skills are dramatically important. But I only want this welding thing. Now, I'm not disregarding all those other activities. Being a good human and having a well-rounded education is really important so you can understand culture and people and differences and things like that. And those soft skills are dramatically important. But I only want this welding thing. you still need to get some way to get the technical skills somewhere, and those micro certificates are a way to go out and do that versus going down a full 2-year certification path or a 4-year path or whatever that might look like. The phone has changed. Phone has changed everything, and COVID has changed everything, and COVID exposed the higher education system and its weaknesses.
Yeah. What you mentioned getting a job and they pay for your education. Is that common in the trades where they'll pay for their employees?
In larger general contracting
Okay.
organizations, those type of things. You know, Bill and Jane's remodeling company, probably not.
Right. Right.
Uh, but by the same token, if that becomes a benefit that makes sense, so there's an opportunity there, assuming a reasonable family status, and again, I'm making an assumption there. That child's got insurance until they're 26. So instead of an insurance benefit from Bill and Jane's remodeling company, they may say, hey, instead of getting you insurance, what if we were to send you to school to do these things instead? Those are opportunities for benefits to talk about and have conversations about and negotiate over in order to support yourself and that business at the same time.
Yeah. Any tips for negotiating?
Ask.
Okay. Just start the conversation.
The question never asked is always no. So I had another client, a younger individual. He's 22 years old. Came to his boss, who was my client, said, I'd like to be full-time salary. And I'd like to make this much. I'm like, okay. So we talked about those various types of levels of skills and things like that for him. Went through it, and they said, you need to go have the conversation, explain that if you're on salary, that means that just because it's 3:30 doesn't mean you get to punch out. Just because it's these other things, you just don't get to do it. And like, oh, okay. Ooh. So some of those realizations came into play because he asked the question. So and like, you need to make sure you congratulate him for having the courage to come and ask the question for what he wants. And that's really important.
Right. Absolutely. Also, establishing rapport with your manager or whoever, your point person is, that's important too, before you
Correct.
just jump into that conversation.
Right. There's this assumption of younger individuals that all we want to do is text. That's not necessarily true. It is relatively true. You want to communicate digitally, but at the end of the day, we still have to have that human-to-human connection and have a meaningful conversation along the way, because you just can't have life through a phone. You just need to have interaction.
Yeah. What about what generation are you?
I am Gen X, old Gen X.
And I am old millennial.
Really? I'm shocked.
Yes. 83.
Yeah.
Right on the cusp.
Yep, sophomore year of high school.
And then my sister's like mid Gen X, I guess. So I have her influence. She tries to think she's Gen X. I said, no, you're not. I mean, millennial. I'm like, you're not anything like a millennial. You are Gen X through and through.
I would agree with that. Unlike my co-host Steve, who claims he's Gen X, he's more of a millennial than he is Gen X.
Is he?
Yeah.
Interesting. But my sister, so you agree with me? She's more Gen X too.
Oh yes.
What are the characteristics of a Gen Xer?
Well, we like to just do things, get things done. We don't necessarily like to share. We don't necessarily like to it's like, hey, we just got to go out and do and survive and figure it out, and it's okay, and we'll figure it out. And I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing. I'm just going to go get it done. It's okay. That's one of the things that a lot had to do, because you got home, you came home from school, you did whatever, you got on your bike. I mean, you got on your bike and you went out all day. It didn't matter. Be home when the streetlights came on. Make sure you were home on time for dinner when the church bells went off, or whatever it was. It was just a very different upbringing that created a lot of freedom and an opportunity that maybe doesn't exist today.
No, you're absolutely right.
And that's
I
why I
mean, I
talked about
feel
that surroundings, right? That spatial awareness, those things around you.
yes.
You had to figure it out because now, when I was 10 years old, probably been a good idea not to come out of the alley after the baseball game was ending to get hit by the car. But that's a whole nother story.
Interesting.
So there are life events that create awareness along the way as well.
Did you almost get killed, Brad, when you were
Nope,
little?
nope. It was a very slow opportunity because the game was just ending. Car was just pulling out. No big deal. It was like the guy was probably driving 3 or 4 miles an hour, and I was bolting to go get my cotton candy from the ice cream truck.
What city did you grow up in?
I grew up in Milwaukee.
In Milwaukee, okay. So,
yeah.
All right, and I'm in Illinois for our listeners if they're curious. But in any case, yeah, and for millennials, I mean, I think everybody knows what we're known for is typically more negative, like social media, the creation
It's
of social
all
media.
about you, Nikki. It's okay. It's all about you. The world revolves around you.
Right, entitled. That's what they say about us.
Correct.
But I think I work pretty hard.
Why can't I rule the world now? I don't know, because you were 26 years old at the time and didn't have any life experience and things like that. But we got our master's degree. We know what we're doing.
Right.
Okay, let me show you how to do that then. That FedEx commercial was my favorite FedEx commercial ever. Oh, you have a master's degree? Let me show you how to do this.
I don't think I saw that. I don't remember that.
It was hilarious. How to write out a shipping label just to ship a package. It was so easy.
Are there any insider magazines or newsletter subscriptions you recommend in the industry that people can get to know certain things or podcasts?
Well, there's the Blue Collar BS podcast right back here.
Yep. And BS stands for Business Solutions, everyone.
Yep, it does. If you want that to be, or it could stand for Brad and Steve. You know?
Oh, there you go. His co-host Steve.
Correct. So there's a lot of different podcasts out there. From a newsletter information standpoint, a lot of the unions do a lot of good job of publishing their newsletters and things like that, and getting information out there and industry news and things like that. Whether you're pro union or not pro union, it's still good information to go out and get and understand. To see what's there, because they do a good job of understanding and showing what might be happening from a legislative perspective as well that could impact industry, what's happening with local projects and things like that. So a lot of the union newsletters activity those are good sites to look at and find. There are a ton of different YouTube things out. I mean, there's literally, I can't say there's one specific thing or one specific area. Find your area of interest and go look for it and figure out what it looks for. The other thing I would urge, like I said, don't be afraid to go to the local repair shop down the road, the handyman service down the road, and knock on the door and say, hey, what can I do for you?
Yeah. Excellent.
And it might be that they need some technical help on social media and things like that. And that could be the end to say, yep, I can do that. Cool. Because that individual knows probably far more what to do with the phone and technology than the guy running the business, because they were too hands-on early on. They're in the business every day and they don't know how to go out and do any of the other stuff. And cool, I'll do this. And can I follow you and take your pictures and create that present and do those things? Great. Knock your socks off. Do something. Go do something and learn at the same time.
Right. And even just putting yourself out there, going out and starting up conversations is a skill in and of itself. So when you ask, what can I help you with? You start to open up all these conversations with people and if you could look at it like if nothing comes of it, you might say, oh, well, that was a fail, but absolutely not. Because you started a conversation and you learned something new. So
correct. There's not a failure. It's learning. It's continuous learning and opportunity. Too often we do not and Steve and I talked about this on the show a while ago. We don't allow young individuals to fail. Everything
Right.
has to be perfection. Everything has
No.
to be there, right? Whether it's social media, we don't see the negative on social media. We don't see any of that stuff. We expect perfection from like age 10 forward, and
It's
that's just
crazy.
not how life is. That just isn't how life is. It doesn't
No.
matter. I mean, oh, we need our little Johnny to be perfect at soccer or hockey or whatever sport or activity or mathletes or whatever it is. We don't allow them the opportunity to fail.
Right.
So getting out someplace to create an opportunity to learn by failing is really important, and own it and understand it and take accountability for yourself, and don't blame others for your own lack of doing something.
Preach.
Oh, don't get me on a roll, Nikki.
All right. So Brad left something for us in our skill box. The Skillabration skill box is available for members only. Can you tell us about this letter to self that you left? What is it? Why would people want to grab it?
So it's really an accountability, I'll call it hack, so to speak, right? When you go and have that opportunity to go learn something, what are the takeaways that you're going to do, and what are you going to have an impact on, and understand the results of doing those things. So let's just say you go down to your local repair shop and say, what can I do? All right, so you're going to make those 3 things, and they say, yep, you know what, you can start working here. Okay, what are the things you want to learn from that, and what's the value you're going to get out of learning that? Not for the immediate gratification piece to it, but what am I going to do to leverage that to take the next step? You might go in there and say, hey, this is, I want to learn these 3 things because I want to make $17 an hour to get my driver's license so I can afford insurance and have my own car. Great. Fantastic. Go do those things along the way. Set those goals and results activities for you now. It's been proven time and time again, those that set goals and results for themselves tend to outperform those that don't. Write them down.
Write them down. Physically, with your hand.
Correct. Right.
Do you know the research on that when you actually write it with your hand?
Yeah, it's
Have you
part
heard
of
about?
your it's part of the physical, just that physical goes transition to brain waves, because I got to think about the letters and I got to think about the words, and I'm not just typing and going autocorrect. Yay.
No, there's literally, so the energy you're putting into it, writing by hand, it's going from your hand to your arm to your spine to your brain, and that is setting that intention, and that goal is like literally there's a trigger that goes off in the brain. There's research on it to get you to take action when you handwrite it. And I know a lot of kids these days might be doing things more by typing. So
Yeah,
handwrite it.
typing it doesn't help. Typing it does not help.
No.
I can type client notes and things. I have my little remarkable notepad. When I write those things down, I'll remember them more so than if I take the notes and I'm typing them, because I don't have the opportunity to write or to run out of battery or whatever it is.
Yes. 100%. All right. Brad Herda. We have Brad Herda from Vision Forward Business Solutions. We'll be leaving all his information in the show notes and on the website, skillabration.com. Brad, do you have anything else you want to share before we end the episode?
When your listeners go out and do the things, not if, but when, it's really important. Words matter. Your mindset matters. And so when you go have the conversation, the answer could be yes or no. No is still an answer, and that's okay. It just means you got to go do ask the next question to get to the yes along the way. So you need to take action. Take action and take control of your own destiny. We are not
100.
You are in control of what life is made of.
100%. There you have it, guys. Brad Herda, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast.
No problem, Nikki. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.